You hit our refinery, we hit yours. On Saturday night, March 8, 2026, Iran fired Keibar Shekan ballistic missiles directly at the Bazan oil refinery in Haifa Bay. That is the single largest oil processing facility in all of Israel. It supplies more than half of the country's fuel. The IRGC published the strike confirmation within minutes. Their message was simple. You hit our refinery, we hit yours. This was the 27th wave of Operation True Promise 4, a calculated timed retaliation that landed minutes after Israeli warplanes struck fuel depots in southern Tehran for the first time in this war. Iran watched its own oil infrastructure burn on live footage, and within minutes, Iran fired ballistic missiles at the facility that keeps Israeli jets fueled, their trucks moving, and their generators running. This was not the first time. In June 2025, during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, the same Bazan complex took a direct hit. 3 employees were killed. The on-site power station was severely damaged. All facilities were shut down. Trading in Bazan shares was suspended. The refinery eventually came back online, but the vulnerability had been exposed for the entire world to see. So when the IRGC launched Keibar Shekan missiles at the exact same complex 9 months later, they were striking a target with a proven track record of being penetrable. And here's why this strike matters. The Bazan Group oil refinery in Haifa Bay is not just any industrial facility. It is the single largest oil processing complex in the entire country. It sits on 526 acres, roughly 2 kilometers from residential neighborhoods. It processes imported crude and supplies between 50 and 60% of Israel's total domestic fuel needs. Diesel for transportation, gasoline, kerosene used for jet fuel and cooking gas. Israel has only one other refinery, the Paz oil plant in Ashdod, operating at 110,000 barrels per day. If Bazan goes offline for an extended period, there is no domestic backup capable of filling that gap. Most people think Israel's energy security rests on its natural gas discoveries in the eastern Mediterranean. In reality, those offshore gas fields, Leviathan and Karish, were already shut down as a precaution when this war started on February 28th. So when the Keibar Shekan missiles arrived at Haifa Bay, Israel's energy infrastructure was already operating in emergency mode before a single warhead detonated. As of right now, Israeli military sources have not confirmed or denied the specific extent of damage from the March 8th attack. That pattern mirrors June 2025, when it took days for the full picture to emerge through stock exchange filings and energy ministry assessments. Now we need to talk about why that specific missile was chosen. Because the engineering behind the Keibar Shekan is the reason Iran can keep launching after 9 straight days of bombardment from 2 of the most advanced militaries on Earth. The Keibar Shekan is a 3rd-generation solid-fuel medium-range ballistic missile operated by the IRGC Aerospace Force. It was first revealed in February 2022. The missile stretches 11.4 meters in length with a diameter of 0.76 meters. Launch weight sits between 4.5 and 6.3 tons. The warhead carries roughly 550 kilograms of high explosive. Official range is 1,450 kilometers, enough to reach deep into Israeli territory from launch positions in western Iran. But range is not the real story. The real story is the fuel. Older Iranian systems like the Shahab series run on liquid propellant. Liquid fuel means hours of exposed preparation on a launch pad, a massive vulnerability window where satellites, surveillance drones, and signals intelligence can locate and destroy the launcher before it fires. The Keibar Shekan eliminated that problem. Solid fuel means the missile can sit loaded, hidden on a 10-axle commercial truck chassis, disguised as a civilian cargo vehicle, and fire within minutes of receiving the order. Iranian state sources have stated that preparation time dropped by a factor of 6 compared to its predecessors. That single engineering change is the entire reason Iran has sustained 29 waves of missile operations in 9 days without running out of mobile launchers. You cannot destroy what you cannot find. You cannot find what looks like a freight truck parked in a warehouse. The warhead is a maneuverable re-entry vehicle built on a triconic airframe designed to maintain stability during aggressive terminal phase corrections. It carries satellite-aided guidance with the capability to adjust its path all the way to the moment of impact. Terminal velocity estimates vary. Some sources report Mach 2 to 3 on final approach. Others put the figure between Mach 7 and Mach 10. That discrepancy alone is significant because it suggests either deliberate ambiguity from Iranian sources to complicate Israeli defense planning or genuine uncertainty among Western intelligence analysts about the system's actual performance envelope. Either way, the missile is specifically engineered to defeat layered air defense architectures. But the refinery strike is not an isolated event. It is one note in a rapidly expanding energy war reshaping the global economy in real time. This escalation began on February 28th, when the United States and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed. Over 2,000 strikes were conducted across 26 of Iran's 31 provinces. As of day 9, 1,332 Iranians were killed. including 194 children. 7 American service members are dead. Iran's response has been relentless. By March 5th, the IRGC reported launching over 500 ballistic missiles and nearly 2,000 drones, 40% directed at Israel, 60% aimed at American targets. The IRGC openly declared that it considers the United States the primary enemy and has prioritized American assets for punishment. And here is where this story becomes a global crisis. The Strait of Hormuz. An IRGC commander stated publicly that the strait was closed and that any vessel attempting passage would be set ablaze. Tanker traffic collapsed from an average of 100-plus total vessels per day to just 4 on March 1st. 3 of those 4 were flying Iranian flags. By midweek, transit had dropped to near zero for any ship not flagged by Iran or China. More than 150 commercial vessels sat anchored outside the strait, unable or unwilling to cross. On March 5th, the IRGC refined its position. The closure applied only to ships linked to the United States, Israel, and Western allies. Chinese-owned vessels were transiting. One bulk carrier, the Iron Maiden, sailed through while broadcasting the words "China owner" on open channels. A Turkish tanker identified itself as Muslim-owned and Turkish-operated and passed without incident. 20 million barrels of oil move through that strait every day. That is roughly 1/5 of global supply. 84% of the crude flowing through the Hormuz corridor heads to Asian markets. China, India, Japan, and South Korea together account for 69% of all shipments. Only 4.2 million barrels per day can be rerouted through existing bypass pipelines, the Saudi East-West line and the UAE's Fujairah pipeline. That leaves approximately 16 million barrels per day at risk if the closure holds. Brent crude surged from around $70 before the war to above $92 by Friday, March 7th, a 27% weekly gain. By Sunday evening, Brent had crossed $100 a barrel for the first time since 2022, climbing past $107. And the damage is not limited to the strait. Saudi Arabia intercepted drones targeting Aramco. Ras Tanura Refinery sustained limited damage. Bahrain, UAE, and Oman facilities were targeted. Kuwait halted crude production entirely and declared force majeure on all oil exports. Qatar, the world's largest LNG exporter, shut down gas production on March 2nd and declared force majeure on LNG contracts 2 days later. Qatar's energy minister warned that if fighting continues, every Gulf producer may be forced to stop exports. This will bring down economies of the world. Most people think this is a regional conflict between Iran and Israel. In reality, it is an energy war with a blast radius that reaches every gas station, every shipping lane, and every central bank on Earth. Donald Trump demanded unconditional surrender from Iran. He stated the war would continue and said he was not concerned about rising gas prices. The White House projected 4 to 6 weeks to achieve its objectives. When pressed about the closed strait, Trump claimed Washington had wiped out Iran's navy. On March 8th, Iran's Assembly of Experts elected Mojtaba Khamenei, the dead supreme leader's son, as his successor. The IRGC pledged allegiance immediately. Trump called him a lightweight, but the regime did not collapse. A new leader was installed within 8 days, and the missile waves never stopped. 9 days in, 29 waves, a new supreme leader seated, the IRGC intact. Iranian President Pezeshkian stated Iran will not capitulate. The wave tempo tells the real story. Analysts noted Iran's ballistic missile launch rate declined between day 1 and day 4, pointing to stockpile depletion or deliberate rationing. But then waves 25 through 29 arrived in rapid succession, each deploying different systems: Keibar Shekan, Fateh, Emad, Khorramshahr 4, and Etimad. Either Iran possesses deeper reserves than any estimate predicted, or it is burning through its remaining inventory in a calculated final surge. Neither answer is reassuring. Saturday night, both sides struck each other's oil infrastructure in the same hour. The Haifa Refinery, supplying more than half of Israel's fuel, was targeted with precision-guided ballistic missiles for the second time in 9 months. The Strait of Hormuz is functionally closed to Western shipping. Oil has jumped more than 40% since the war began and crossed $100 a barrel. Qatar has declared force majeure on global gas contracts. Kuwait has stopped exporting. 7 Americans are dead. Over 1,300 Iranians are dead. A new supreme leader is seated in Tehran, and neither government, not Washington, not Tehran, not Jerusalem, has defined what an acceptable end to this conflict even looks like. That is not a war with an exit strategy. That is a war running on momentum, and momentum does not negotiate.